I have a bunch of different things that I thought might be fun to cover today. And I thought that you and I had talked earlier about talking about practicing joy
Yes.
and the purpose behind it. I
Because
have some
something
neurological,
intentional.
exactly,
Mm.
exactly. Would you tell us the underlying concepts for you on the ways that you approach this? Because I really love your approach to finding what works for each of us rather than expecting that you have to follow this particular set throughout the whole process. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, it is. I think once we try something, it's worth giving it a decent college try, really allowing ourselves to do something new and different or something old that hasn't worked before. But ultimately, have we got a bandwidth issue or are you just waving hello to
No, I'm
people?
waving hi to Elizabeth. I haven't seen her forever.
Hey, welcome, welcome, Elizabeth, and everybody who's here thus far. Good to see the numbers starting to pick up. So, I was just talking about how when we are trying to develop a practice, so we start with the habits and allowing them to become a habit. And I think one of the things that's really important that goes missing when we simply gather information, which is great. So, here we are on a live call gathering information. And for some of you, you're watching in replay and gathering information. The reason for doing a course or program or becoming involved in an actual group is that it holds us in a lovely blend of accountability and support. And next week, I'll talk a little bit more about accountability with flexibility. And that does play into what we're talking about here with your question, Sonia, as to why it's important to develop a practice. So, a habit is something you're doing at a regular time, ideally the same time each day, that sort of thing. When it becomes a practice, and I think I touched on this very briefly last week, it becomes something that evolves and grows and it has a level of expertise to it. So we're not in that early position of forcing ourselves to say meditate or forcing ourselves to exercise, or I was told to look for joy in this, so I've got to go and do this. It can feel a little bit like that in the beginning, but as we begin to develop the habit and it becomes a practice, we don't have to put our energy anymore into making ourselves do something. It's something that we do automatically. So my morning routine is very solid, and I feel not quite right if it goes out. Occasionally it will. That's life. There's travel, there's time differences, stuff happens. But more often than not, 7 days a week, I have a basic morning habit, and 5 or 6 days a week, it is a longer habit and it has a sense of ritual and it becomes a practice and it sets my day up really beautifully. And I don't have to think about it anymore. And I've trained those around me, which at the moment is my husband and my poodle. The poodle gets a little frustrated and starts to carry on like a pork chop and tries to distract me. But I'm like, I do this every day, so you can just wait. And Greg initially would start talking to me. My love would start chatting to me, and I'd be like, just hold up the journal, or I would take myself somewhere else. So I would have that peace and quiet. And now it's automatic. I start the day in gratitude. The very first thing I do is a food plan. Then I go into gratitude. And next week, I'll talk about how we can layer that so that it becomes really rich and robust and creative and juicy and fabulous. And then from there, I move into my daily plan. And it's just such a great way to start the day because intentionality, and we can hope for things to work out. We can hope to lose weight. We can hope to find more joy. As I said, we can gather information in a call like this and even a certain amount of motivation. We can jump off a call or a lecture and feel really motivated. But if we don't schedule it and make it intentional and take action, chances are it will drift off. And Sonia, you probably have a little bit more to add to the neuroscience of why it's really important to create some sort of container for yourself. And this is what I love about programs. I've just joined something. I'm not sure it's the right one yet, but it's for a whole year and it's got a 14-day trial. And I have to really honor my money and my time. I've put an alert in on day 15 saying, if I'm not absolutely delighted with this, I am stepping out because it's a big commitment. Whereas some of these shorter commitments, we can throw ourselves in And I've promised myself for that next 14 days to give it a red hot go. I will diligently engage every day rather than let it drift and then go, oh, this isn't working for me when I'm not really working it. Over to you, Sonja, with a little bit of the neuroscience of why we often fall off the path of something we really want.
I have an entire chapter in the ebb and flow of things in the book that I just released. But the ebb and flow concept, it's really important to recognize that, for instance, you talk about having a very solid, very committed, very, it sounds almost sacred morning routine. Mine is very different because each day is different. I sometimes have my first call at 4:30. I always have my first call at 4:30, but I often have my first client call right after that, which makes me required to be up early enough to shake off the night, to put on the day and get moving without a whole lot of other than the one thing. This is where it gets interesting because automaticity is what you're basically talking about. And automaticity can flow in many different ways. But what automaticity does is create habits that are positive, usually. We can have negative automaticity, believe me. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, getting up and walking into the kitchen. 7 o'clock in the evening, sitting down on the couch, turning on the television and grabbing a bag of something. That's also automatic. And that's also a habit from our striatum. That's a thing that is set up. That's why this food business is so fascinating because there are so many varied reasons that we might go to food. But automaticity in itself does not require a whole lot of brain energy because it's coming from our limbic system. And so when you're doing this, you're not depleting any willpower. You're actually replenishing, if anything, when you're doing things that are positive and supportive and that you're happy about. So that automaticity is a really big deal when you can develop it. It does take time. And if you start to notice, oh, wow, I didn't do that thing today, the important thing is not to feel guilty or there it goes again. There I go again. I'm doing that thing again. I'm dropping all the balls. See, I can't do anything for any length of time. That's the thing that causes us to not do it again, ironically. So it's a very interesting process because my morning is so different every morning. I have developed just a habit stack of sorts that I do throughout the day. I look at my calendar the night before and I determine when I'm going to do A, B, and C. And that helps. So that's the habit I have is when am I going to plug in these pieces the next day?
Yeah. So you've got the actual core, what you're going to do and where your flexibility is with your particular lifestyle and your role in life and what's meaningful is to be able to move it around, but still make sure it all gets done.
But in the sense that because it's automatic for me to check the night before, it does not take away or doesn't require a ton of energy. That energy suck is usually the reason that we don't do something because we've gotten too heavy, too busy. My goodness, in the United States, do you guys celebrate Thanksgiving on Thursday this week? No. Yeah, I didn't think so.
No, that's a
I knew it
solely
was our
American
holiday.
thing.
I knew that, but I know Canada does it at some point. And anyway, I think it was a few weeks ago for Canada. But this Thursday pulls on us for many days, if not weeks in advance. And many of us, because we've been the caregivers and been the cookers. And so this is a big deal. And this pulls on us in many ways. And many habits fall by the wayside, which makes it even harder to maintain what we like to think of as a hopeful holiday rather than a holiday that has, shall I say, dips and maybe chasms and maybe Grand Canyons.
And one that you have to then get over rather than
Yes.
resume. Yeah.
Literally and figuratively, right. If you're getting over your emotional and impulsiveness, if you will, to call it that, which it isn't really. But if you're getting over, that's one thing, but you're also doing it physiologically. Every time we eat something that isn't serving and nurturing our cells, but is nurturing our soul in some way, honoring grandma's memory or whatever. Whenever we're doing that, we're building up, we're basically birthing purple minions in our gut that are going to scream at us for days. And so the physiological screaming that comes from that for days is also an issue. So back to what you were talking about with the automaticity, I really appreciate the habit stacking that comes in. Sometimes it takes many days for people to establish a solid habit. But what you said later about the duration or the
Mm.
intensity of it is really important because you can do something for 1 minute or for 3 minutes. And then on the weekend, maybe do it for 10 minutes or for 30 minutes, even. So or whenever you have a day that is longer. But the fact is, you're still maintaining that level of delight.
Yes, absolutely. And it was one of the things that I thought a lot about, two aspects around time and timing that I wanted to weigh in on that have come to mind while I was listening to you there, Sonia. One is what you were just talking about, how I've made this course sort of 5 to 15 minutes a day. And that was intentional because if it's too hard, particularly in the beginning, we won't do it, especially when it's not a daily call where we're all live together. That holds us a little bit stronger because we know we have to turn up at a certain time and we are as much as possible engaged in and we have each other. So we have that level of accountability. When something is self managed, starting small is, I wouldn't say it's essential, but it's really smart. And many of us, especially those of us that are big picture thinkers, blue sky thinkers, big dreamers, highly driven, guilty. And they're not bad qualities, they're great qualities, but I would often overreach and food is the great example. I still have to catch myself thinking, I'll just skip this, or I just need to minimize my food intake. Now, that will always come from guilt or wanting a different result or wanting to speed things up. Whereas the reality is, it's not so much what I do in a single meal, it's what I do every day. So, making things small and doable, and so we can grow those practices, and also so that we can experiment. We can try a joy practice or a different style of meditation. We will do one together today that is only 3 minutes. It's a little bonus that comes with the program. And I made it that way because a lot of people think of meditation as something that they are too impatient, they're too fidgety, they're meant to just focus on their breath and suddenly become holier than thou and Zen. And any of you who've tried meditation, and I'm sure most of you have, would know that actually it's so multifunctional and there are so many ways of doing it. And it can be delightful. But instead of going straight to and I did this once, the Vipassana, the 10-day silent practice,
Oh,
no eye
yeah.
contact, no talking, no nothing. Instead of going to those extremes, and I'm very attracted to them and they're not a bad thing and we can build up to them. But what we do every day is a little bit, when it comes to joy, is a bit like food or exercise. It builds up. We build our capacity, we build the metaphorical or literal muscle, and then we can lean into it and we can expand on it and we can do more. But it also, making it small gives us that permission to experiment. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment. So for 3 weeks, I'm going to try this morning cup of meditation and I'm just going to lean into that. And I may never do it again, but I'm going to give it that sort of red hot hope. I'm not going to give up on myself or feel guilty if I don't do it at a certain time. Making it small, making it doable, even if you do it with a glass of water at the end of the day, it's still effective. You're still returning to something intentionally and trying something that may have some qualities that are similar to things you've tried before, but a little different, a little experimental, a little bit of fun. The other aspect of time I wanted to mention has gone straight out of my brain, but it will no doubt come
Nice. I
back.
love that. I
Oh, I
love
think
it.
it's I think it's come back already. So when I wrote I Am Enough, and we may have touched on this already, I did a lot of research into how long it takes to truly ingrain a habit. And it turns out the average is, and this was my memory, so it's a little loosey goosey, something around about the 63 to 68
That's
day mark.
exactly
So
what I
I
63. Mhm.
chose 90 days because 90 days is an entire season. And then I like the rule of three. So when I created 21% more joy in 21 days, I realized that, as I said last week, people who don't know me aren't going to sign up necessarily for 90 days. That feels like a big commitment. But most of us can do something or try something for 3 weeks, for 21 days. And we condense and mimic that seasonal 3 months with 3 weeks. But also, I've already heard from 2 people who did the first round of this course, and they're choosing to do it again because they're going to turn it in some of those things into a regular practice. So making it an ownable course felt important to me, an affordable, ownable, doable program. And it's not just about this program, it's about any time you want to develop a new habit, make it doable, make it small so you can grow it. And if it's not for you, you can go, okay, I'm now going to try this instead.
Now, I love that. And now might be a good time to do that meditation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
For anybody that
So,
while you're setting that up, I'd like to say something about meditation. There are
mhm,
some people that really struggle with it and feel less than or inferior because they don't feel comfortable meditating. That's actually an issue, and you can do different types of meditation. I think Sheridan's going to give us one that is really doable. But the interesting thing about many of us who are so critical of ourselves and our actions, that's the problem with some meditations. That's why meditation, especially something like Vipassana, which is literally 10 days, no talking, meditating for 8 to 10 hours a day, 10 days worth. Now, that can be incredibly overwhelming and feeling a little bit like you're ready for the loony bin, maybe. Yeah. I'm not saying it's wrong at all. I just know that there are multiple things happening, especially with someone who has a really strong inner critic. That voice is loud, really loud
mm,
when we're sitting quietly, but it can be quieted and it needs to be listened to. But also, you need to understand what it is that you're hearing. It's just a voice that's trying to protect you. It's not necessarily at all the truth.
if you have a cuppa with you, that would be ideal, or a glass of water or some sort of vessel that you like to drink out of.
So if you can grab a mug that you appreciate and love, and a drink that you especially love, hopefully you come with one. If not, visualize it.
Yes, yes, visualize it if you need to. That's totally fine. So I have here my this is my favorite cup of coffee. So it's still fairly early in the morning and I've got a few inches of coffee. So I'm going to enjoy that. I have my goblet for water. These are just tiny little joy sparks there. They may seem insignificant, but I'm quite attached to them and they bring me delight. And then I have my herbal tea, beautiful Japanese mug, which was given to me by a friend, her first trip to Japan. So I can
Mhm.
see a few vessels. Wonderful, beautiful. Hey, Susie, Donna, excellent. Okay, so if you just want to gently close your eyes or soften your gaze, we'll take a deep breath in for 3, hold 2, 3, and then out 2, 3. And another deep breath in 2, 3, hold 2, 3, and out 2, 3. Once more in 2, 3, hold 2, 3, and out 2, 3. Now just get you to bring your attention to your hands. Whether you just want to look down or keep your eyes closed, just bring your attention to the feeling of your cup or mug or glass. Is it warm or cool? Is it smooth or rough? Is there a design that even if you don't open your eyes, you can see in your mind's eye that brings delight? And just notice the weight of it. Then as you lift the vessel towards your mouth, just pause before it reaches your lips. Breathing in through your nose, notice the aroma. If it's water, can you smell it? Is there a crispness, a cleanness, or a fresh cup of tea? The herbs, the aromatics. If it's coffee, it might be deep and robust. Just notice. Then as you raise the vessel to your mouth, notice the feeling as it touches your lower lip and the shape of your mouth as you tilt the cup or mug or glass and take that first sip. Notice where the flavor hits first. Is it forward in your mouth? Does it then move back and coat your tongue as you swallow? Is there an aftertaste? And then as we sit here quietly together, just be aware when, if or when, the desire to take another sip comes. And then allow yourself again to mindfully lift the vessel to your mouth. Notice the action of your mouth, the feeling of the vessel against your lips, and the taste. Is it as satisfying as the first sip? Maybe less, maybe more. Remembering a time where you perhaps had the same drink, whether it's water or coffee or tea or perhaps something entirely different. Remember a time where you really appreciated this moment. Take yourself back there. Maybe you're at Trevi Fountain in Italy having a espresso, or perhaps you're at the bedside of somebody who was coming out of surgery and only allowed the tiniest of sips, and you could see how important it was for them that you were there to help raise the straw or cup to their mouth and give them that little bit of moisture to make them more comfortable. Maybe it was earlier today with your very first cuppa of the day. Do you just grab any old mug or cup, rinse it off, and use it? Or do you have an absolute favorite cup? Is there a glass or a set of glasses that you've been saving for special occasion? How often do they get used? Could you delight yourself by using one just because, just for the joy of it? And when you're ready, just come back into the room, into the Zoom, gently opening your eyes. You can take another sip anytime you like. And that is a meditation. And doubt it was much for 3 minutes. I did expand because in the meditation I used in the program, it's very focused on that very first cup of the day. And it's something that brings me great gratitude, probably four to five times a week. It's made by my love. The other days I make it myself and make it for him. If he's around, we have a lot of time apart. The various, he's got a family centered around and work scattered in different places. But by allowing ourselves to focus on something that is really delightful, thus drinking out of something that's meaningful, having something that we can take a few minutes, just a few minutes to really appreciate, bring in all our senses, we have this lovely, mindful, joyful moment. And that's what I call leaning in. So for those of you who've been doing the program in real time with us while we do these live calls, you will have known that it's what this week has been about, leaning into the experience. Last week was noticing, week 2 is leaning in. And this lovely little meditation is a way of doing that. So the one on the program is very focused on your first cuppa of the day. You can, of course, translate it to anywhere you like. There's one day of the week I very rarely drink coffee in the afternoon, and I'm very specific about the amount of coffee I have. I'm quite not hypersensitive to it, but I know that for me, after midday, not a great idea. But on Saturdays when I do my radio program, I get up even earlier, and it's an early program and it's a 4-hour intense program. So those who are not familiar with the ABC, it's got interviews, it's got talk back, it's got live music, it's got everything in it. And 4 hours is a long time for that level of concentration. Traditionally, these shows went for 90 minutes to 2 hours, but with the way of the world and everyone wanting a lot more bang for their buck as far as employment goes, we are all working, for those of us that work for somebody else, often working harder for the same money, sometimes for less money. And it's a big show. So when I come home, I am training myself to nap. And it's not something I would have told you if you spoke to me a year ago. Can't sleep in the day. I can't, I was very wedded to this idea that not only was I a poor sleeper, I could not nap. And I thought, what if that's not true? So I began the practice of lying down each afternoon and napping or doing a yoga nidra meditation or a short meditation or just closing my eyes and relaxing. And lo and behold, not every time, but sometimes I actually nod off for a little bit. And when that happens, I'm completely energized when I wake up, even if it's only been 6 or 7 minutes. And on Saturday, I really need that reset. And so I will do that. There's not usually time when I get up at 3 in the morning to get going to do a meditation. Sometimes there is, but I'll do the reset and I'll do that 3 minute first cuppa of the day meditation again to reset my day. So I actually get an 8 day week that way. Every Saturday is like 2 days. I get two fresh starts. Yeah. How did you go with that one, Sonia? Did you like it?
I loved it. I loved it. I know that we are all very busy, and taking just a moment to notice something that feels so regular and so automatic in many ways, but to look at it differently and to
Mm,
expand on it and to appreciate it. I especially appreciated the thought of someone coming out of surgery. We just had a conversation in the Magic today about our responsibility, our solemn responsibility to our pets. And it brought to mind my solemn responsibility in the moment to my mother, and making sure I was her medical power of attorney, making sure the one thing, the most important thing, was that she was comfortable. And it was interesting when you did that. I remembered giving her a sip of water, and the importance of that just small gift.
yeah.
And it brought back a different sense for me. Instead of the stress that I was feeling in the time, I had the memory again, and it did not feel stressful. It felt
Mm,
sublime. It was beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you. How was that for
My
everyone else? I'm curious what came up for people. Please put something in the chat thread if you felt something shift or something different or just a central awareness. There is so much of our day spent on dealing with the chaos and the cacophony and the tornadoes that are swirling around us. Sometimes, even though that tornado is swirling around us, we can sit in sublime bliss for a moment and just appreciate what is right in front of us in that moment.
I thought Yeah, I'd love to see a couple of comments come through. That would be fabulous. Sonia, I love what you brought up in the mail out this week about discipline versus practices and the Latin origins of the word discipline to punish. Oh my goodness. And when people say you're really disciplined, I just say, no, I'm well practiced. I'm well
Right.
practiced.
Yeah, words are just so important to me. The idea that we can call it one thing and feel this way about it. For me, discipline means rigidity. It brings up my grandfather getting up at the crack of dawn and leaving and going to work and stressing the importance of hard work. Above all else, hard work. That
Mm.
was his push. It was hard work. Now, I was the only girl out of, I don't even know how many boys, 7 cousins, and then both of his children were male. So there was just a lot of male testosterone going around, but there was this constant push for discipline. And even when we were playing card games, my grandfather would say, "I didn't bring a sack lunch. Come on, do it." I know, totally. Where's the fun in that, Grandpa? Come on, come
Mm.
on. But the idea of the difference between that discipline and the practice. I
Yeah.
also was thinking about the Nutcracker season, which is coming up. For a lot of ballet dancers started rehearsing weeks ago for probably 2 or 3 nights of performance, maybe a week, but they've been practicing and practicing. And I want to recognize the importance of doing something on a regular basis for a time, not expecting perfection, which is what happens. This is why diets are so broken. I am not suggesting that they don't work for a time. But when we are so rigid and so specific that we have to be, I'm not suggesting that there isn't a time and place for all of this. But when we are rigid, we don't learn.
Yeah.
We are doing something straight out of someone else's handbook, and we're basically roboticizing our process. We need to be able to reflect, which is the noticing. We need to be able to focus, which is recognizing, like in just with the cup of tea, recognizing the appreciation for what's going on in my body right now. Do I really, what is the thing that my body needs right now to focus and to think and to notice, and then to reflect on how this impacts the rest of my process. I love the analogy of the way that we actually learn and the way that we actually shift, which is what you're talking about. Who wouldn't want more joy in their life? Who wouldn't want to have be practicing more joy versus protecting ourselves from the chaos? What if that chaos
Mm.
just swirls around us regardless? And what if instead of focusing on that sort of uncontrollable thing that we can't shift to something that we do have control over, which is what we're paying attention to? And
And
so
giving ourselves that tiny slither of time, some lovely messages. I appreciate that in retirement, I have time to sit over my morning coffee and really enjoy the experience. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. And I can't wait to have coffee in my favorite cup tomorrow morning. I often go to bed thinking of that. And it's not that I'm a coffee addict. It's just, I know how much I've come to allow myself instead of just gulping it down or drinking it on the fly, taking that 2 or 3 minutes to really appreciate it. It's something that I really value.
if you think about the amount of time that we have in a day, and any time that we can shift our focus away for even just a moment around that swirling, chaosy, tornado-y, hurricane-y storm, typhoon, that was the other word I was thinking of. When we can shift away from that, it's still going to be swirling. It's still going to be there. And nothing is going to change in our ability to fix any of that. But what we can do is ground ourselves in these moments that actually does impact the chaos around us. That's the beauty of taking those moments to pause.
And particularly if you're in a personally chaotic time or a culturally chaotic time where it's all swirling around, it allows you to be the eye in the storm. You hear that in the middle of a cyclone, there's this quiet space, and it allows you to lean into that and to be that. And from there, you're in a position to perhaps even help others by being that calm space. So practice, the Latin origins take us to act, to take an action. So it's not an entirely passive thing. It might sound passive to sit and enjoy your cup of tea, but it is when you're doing it as a practice, as a meditation, as it were, or a simple mindfulness exercise. It is active, where we are paying attention and utilizing all of our senses. They're there all the time, but like breathing, I think breathing's the only thing that we can do either intentionally or automatically. We're asleep, we're not being intentional, we're still breathing. When we meditate, we notice these things, swallowing, tasting, they're going on all the time. But when we are disassociated from them and we're caught up in the chaos of the mind, the pleasure of them, the joy of these little moments is so diminished. And this is something that it sounds little, but it adds up to the big things. So by building more joy into my life, particularly since writing I Am Enough, because that's where it bubbled to the surface that joy had gone missing and music had gone missing and some old habits of just mindless eating and numbing out and all of that sort of self-soothing stuff was starting to sneak back in. And I caught it, not before it did a bit of physical and emotional damage, but I did caught it, catch it. I reversed it. But then from there, I built something that I'd never had before. So even though I'd been in the right size body when a close, I don't know if there's ever an ideal with someone with my history, but close enough, like in a healthy weight range, shall we say, for quite a while at times. And I'd had that 4 year stretch. I wasn't at peace. I always wanted more. I wasn't joyful. I was gripping on with my fingernails and clenched teeth just to survive the day without falling into those old habits. So now, having really leaned into joy and into pleasure and fun, I have into the bigger dreams. So from these little, there's a beautiful song by an artist called Paul Kelly here in Australia, and it describes a moment in history where one of our First Nations people had just been refusing to give up on country. And it talks about a former leader. Gosh, if we only had these leaders again, hey, a chap called Gough Whitlam, who went all the way out to country and poured this handful of sand through the First Nations person's hand as a symbolic gesture. And the title of the song is From Little Things, Big Things Grow. So, from these small mindful habits, from leaning into joy, from my non negotiable joy habits, the sort of more weekly things, and we can talk about that probably next week. At the moment, where it's a little focused on the daily things, the small daily things. But from those, has become the bigger picture. I am the fittest and strongest I've been in my adult life. Seriously. Yeah. It's such an incredible feeling. We're moving house at the moment, which is why you're seeing a little more clutter behind me than usual. I normally have this clear space and I'm lifting and carrying and I'm not complaining. I'm actually just doing it and getting it done because I understand that the result of making these changes is what I'm after. There's a satisfaction in being able to lift and carry. I wouldn't say it's exactly joyful. I'm always glad to put the box down, but I built this bigger picture of my general health. So if you're unsure of what to focus on when it comes to joy, always bring it back to health, and creativity is the other one because that's a gift that keeps giving. They both are really. I also, something I noticed this week, and this is what I love about jumping on with Sonja and being with you all, is that it brings everything to the surface for me as well. So I'm focusing and thinking and just checking in on myself. And I realized that I've been here in this environment on the Sunshine Coast for 9 years. And whilst I recognize that I am somebody who has had a bit of a gypsy life, so I have close friends, one or two in each different part of the world that I've been in. And Sonja is point an example. I have two close friends in your area. And these are the people that just add so much to my life. But for a long time, I felt like I knew nice people here, good people, but they didn't feel like my people. And after 9 years, I can honestly say, in allowing myself to have Sunday off and accept a gift from a friend who's a beautiful naturopath, and I did essential oil perfume making workshop with her, and then in the afternoon, a herbal tea workshop. And in allowing myself to do that, as I was driving away and another friend, and I just suddenly realized I found them. By allowing joy into my life, by dancing in the dark with my weekly, which I did last night after lifting boxes all day. Back in the day, I would have gone, I'm too tired. I can't do that. It's going to be too hard. I'm too sore. It's the opposite for me now. It allowed me to be flexible. It allowed music. It allowed release at the end of the day and stretching. And consequently, I wasn't stuck in the negative story of I can't do this fun thing because it'll be too hard after all the hard things I've done today. So that might sound like a little moment, but it's almost like a 360-degree take on the way I used to think about movement and fun. I'm too tired. I need to go to bed. It's fairly early in the evening, and I do like to go to bed fairly early. But sometimes I just need to suspend those rigid ideas of what I must do and lean into fun. 2 years ago, I took a trip I've been planning to take for decades. And certainly the last decade, we talked about our mum, Sonia. And that's what came to me when I was doing the meditation, mum being there in palliative care and just needing that moistening of the mouth and that tiny sip and being able to give that to her. And we've had her ashes in my brother's linen press for over a decade. And finally, I took the trip with my sister and we scattered those ashes in Kihei, where we'd lived as children in Maui. And the tiny steps are adding up to the big things, the big wins in life. But if I try to start too big, then all of the reasons I can't become actual real reasons I can't. If I hadn't saved up and had my little dream account and put a little bit in it each week so that I could afford that trip, how was it going to happen without going financially backwards? So those little things can grow into really life-changing things.
It's really interesting. My journey as well. 9 years ago this month, I started 2016. What is that? Is that 9 years ago? Yeah. 5 and 4 is 9. Yeah. I started because of a health issue. I made some major changes to my food. I lost some weight, but I didn't kick the type 2 diabetes and high cholesterol. I then joined a program that really helped me understand the importance of a ton of vegetables and the importance of releasing some of those foods that were nurturing my soul and not my cell. They are not food. It's not my food. They're not food. They are nurturing something. But what they're also doing is numbing us. And this is where I wanted to go because in 2018, I'd made it to a place physically where not only was I light enough, I used to not be able to climb my own stairs without serious help. And I lived on the second floor. I definitely couldn't carry my groceries. Thank goodness for Amazon because I was able to get my groceries delivered and they brought it up to the top step. And that helped me realize, all right, I gotta get my physical and my emotional self in a better place. And as I was maintaining my abstinence, I noticed that all the feelings were coming back. Many of us don't know what joy feels like because we are not able to either interpret it, we might be having it, but if we don't amplify it when it does happen, it kind of slips in and out of the world. Danger and sadness and grief and disgust and shame are so loud, and we're constantly trying to numb those things. And when we stop that, guess what else turns up? That is very loud. That is absolutely very loud. But the very first time I felt giddy, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It just came up in my feed, and thank goodness for Facebook feeds in this way. Okay? It came up that I had run a complete 5K on my own without think about that I know I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it because I at one point just a year earlier or 2 years earlier could not climb my stairs easily. And I ran an entire
Mm.
5K. And I had such a high and I was just it was almost uncomfortable. It really was because I didn't know what it was at first. And I happened to have been getting on an accountability call and I was talking about it and I was floored by it. And it didn't occur to me then, but it occurs to me now exactly why that was. Why I had been numbing myself for my shame and my fear and my disgust at myself for not being able to stop this eating thing. I could do so many other things, but I couldn't figure this out. And that numbing itself was also numbing the joy and the delight. And I spend a lot of time in my delight in my own head. I have a cartoon brain that's crazy. You should spend some time up here.
I'd love to.
I know, right? Reason to have a love party. I'll figure it out. Maybe I can share this on Zoom. But just think about this. If you haven't practiced joy, if you haven't sat and figured out what makes you joyful, because it's different for everyone. My joy often comes first thing in the morning, singing show tunes at the top of my lungs. I know Elizabeth can relate to that. Elizabeth's a singer too.
But I personally, oh my God, I need earbuds. I like peace first thing in the morning and third
Exactly.
song. I love your
Not
show tunes,
disrespectful.
but much later in the day.
But that's your joy, and that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at for people, right? That you can find things that really bring it home for you, and you can say to yourself, oh yeah, that's joy. That's joy for me. Just
Mm.
think how powerful that is. Because we
It
spend
is
so much
massive.
time we spend so much time in criticism, and because we're trying to keep ourselves safe.
Mm.
As I said
Joy,
on
it's,
the first call, I
yeah,
don't know.
sorry.
No, I just wanted to say on our first call that we were talking about this, I reminded people that our brains are not here to make us happy. Our brains are here to keep us alive. It's our
Yes.
job to make these changes. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's an important reminder. I just wanted to add that this has made me remember early days when I would clean up my food as being a chronic overeater and leaning into complex carbohydrates and all that sort of thing. When I'd first clean it up after 3 days, I would feel so good. I couldn't stand myself. I didn't know what to do with the energy. I didn't know that I should dance or move or sing or whatever. I actually felt like even though it felt good, and this is so counterintuitive, and I'm guessing maybe some of you can relate to this, we're not used to feeling good and we don't know what to do with all that energy and all that good feeling. And so inevitably, not allowing myself to sit in that space of feeling it would feel agitated and itchy and twitchy because I wasn't used to it. And even though there was that little part of my brain that's going, this is actually a good thing. You're going to have more energy. If you live like this, you're going to be able to get more done. But it didn't match the people in my life and the situations in my life. And that dampening down, as counterintuitive as it is, and as much as I'd wanted to lose the weight and live differently, I couldn't allow myself because it meant a certain amount of letting go and becoming more comfortable with something that initially was strangely uncomfortable. So just being aware of that, for a lot of people, taking the 3 minutes to enjoy their morning cuppa can bring up feelings of guilt. I should be up doing this for the kids or the grandkids or the partner or the mother, or I should. And we shut ourselves down. And yet the logical part of our brain is going, come on, sister, it's 3 minutes. Just give yourself the 3 minutes. So, and allowing ourselves to go through what might initially feel a little uncomfortable, even though it is joyful, it can be, yeah, it can just give you that kind of restless, oh, I'm not familiar with this. And we are creatures of comfort. We will, another one of my mum's favorite sayings, we hug the chains that bind us. I can't remember who originally said that, but we do because they become like a security blanket. And we all need to throw off the blanket and get up and get moving into our life, our day, our bigger purpose, our taking the joy that we can generate in ourselves and sharing it with our friends and others. But we do have that tendency to want to stay what feels like safe, even though safe might be being 100 pounds overweight and so on and so forth, or just being chronically not as happy and as energized as you could be. Yeah. So just
Right.
be aware of that and be kind to yourself. That's another reason why these small incremental steps held in the container of reading a book or doing a program, allowing something to come in rather than thinking you have to self-generate everything can just be helpful. Gen-
Absolutely.
gen-
Absolutely. I wanted to share the link to this 21-day program that Sheridan has. It's with this coupon code, which is Sonja and Sheridan, all one word. And make sure you spell my name right. Thank you, Dad,
Join
for
you with a J.
yeah. Thank you, Dad, for adding the ya to me. Without the Y, it's a J. But you don't need to worry about capitals on that. That's the code to get in, and it's a discounted rate that Sheridan's giving us for joining us this time. We did Sheridan's book club, The Magic did, a while back. It's been a year or so at least, hasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
we read your book in book club. And I want to say that it's $69 right now US, and it is worth every penny. So take a minute to check that out. She's got a beautiful page there that explains a little bit more about what you expect. But the reason that I'm mentioning this is right now in these moments, we need to have something that we can ground ourselves with, something that we can center ourselves with, especially in this ridiculous season of sugar. Ridiculous season. And like I said, packed in with memories of, yeah, but it's grandma's recipe and we need to honor grandma.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
No, people are still surprised that on a Tuesday night, I don't care if it's the season to be jolly for me, is doing my Tuesday night dance program. And I will do that no matter what.
yep.
Almost. If someone strangely decided to get married on a Tuesday night, obviously I'd be there if I'm interstate or overseas. But I will forgo all the office Christmas parties and the invitations that are coming to be what other people decide is fun, and then all the pressure that goes with that. And sometimes that is fun, but I'm committed. So next week I'll talk more about some of those, perhaps not so much the daily habits, but we'll talk about some of the bigger picture habits, the joy habits, the when we've built those foundations, how we can reach and expand our joy into the big picture stuff.
Exactly. I do wanna mention that my book is on sale right now.
Yes. It's correct now. It's got all the corrections in there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay. Big celebration.
looks a lot alike, but it's 100 pages lighter. The other version that first came out, God bless them, they didn't share the version with me, and I got double spaced. This is now a very versatile and functional 283 pages or something versus the 400 and something from the first. So,
Congratulations.
yeah,
Yes.
it's on Amazon, and there's a Kindle and a printed version available. Also, the Audible is I was just talking with the publisher, and there's a section at the beginning, if anyone reads Audible books, there's a section at the beginning that has some music attached to it. And they had this music, and I was playing it with Jackie, and she was just looking at me like, Mom, that music reminds me of when people are trying to get you to donate to Save the Starving Children. It's
Oh, I really got to die laughing. Yep.
I know. It wasn't what we wanted. So I'm waiting impatiently for him to come up. I called my brother, who's a record producer, and I said, honey, what do you suggest? He goes, it's got to be intelligent. I said, okay. Can you? Yeah, he couldn't give me words for it. God bless him. But I'm hoping the Audible will be coming out soon. But here's the link for the physical copy, and the Kindle is also available
Beautiful.
here. If
Thank
I
you.
can
Thank
press
you.
enter. Yeah, I really appreciate spending this time with you, Sheridan, and I hope others are getting something for this. We had last week's was a little bit more interactive in one sense. This week with the meditation, I really appreciated the hands-on. I need you all to hear that in order to learn, we need to experience these things and recognize the things that work and the things that don't. You need to learn how to drive your own car. That might feel scary, but you're never going to be able to drive the car perfectly with the 47 points that you're going to remember. A car needs to be driven with decisiveness and understanding and the ability to adjust to the circumstances.
And to be in the driver's seat. So until we take control of some of these things, if someone else is always in the driver's seat, even though it means stepping up our responsibility and learning and sometimes pushing ourselves through a little bit of discomfort, once we're in the driver's seat of our own life and we're in control of those choices, oh my goodness, the freedom, the joy, there is so much more waiting for us. So in any area of life where things are lacking, if the joy's gone missing, if that's showing up in different ways, food wonkiness or habits that you're not thrilled about, or you're just not, you just want more. It's okay to want more. It's not greedy. Most joyful things are free. They're all about intentionality and how we're using our time and developing those practices and then sharing and connection. So we might talk a little bit more about that, but it's something I really appreciate. There is something very special about being on a live call, especially for us here in Australia. Nearly every program I've done, and I've done quite a few because that's just part of what I love to learn and I love to hear other people's ideas and gather that information. I've had to do most of it listening to the replays, and it has been effective. I'm not saying it's not, but there is certainly something very joyful for us, the presenters, seeing you here on the live call and seeing your faces and getting a little bit of feedback and just seeing you here. We'll perhaps be a little more interactive next week, but just know that I appreciate each and every one of you. And I also like those who'll be listening on the replay. I've been that person most of the time, and given that Australia, population wise, is small and America is large, it'll probably continue to be that way to a high degree. But if you can turn up live for our final call next week, that would be super special. Thank you so much, Sonia. You bring me
Thank
joy.
you. Thank you. You bring me
Yes, you
joy, my
do.
friend. It's so fun working with you. Thank you so much for being you.
Yeah,
Have a
you too.
wonderful day. I'm so grateful to see all your faces and to see all your names for those of you who aren't on camera. Look for the recording and please share it out to your friends. I can't say enough right now. This is the season of joy, technically, but boy, howdy, can it be really
Can be triggering. Can be challenging.
can be very challenging. Can be very
Yes.
challenging. Have a
Yeah.
wonderful day. Enjoy jumping through
Yeah.
those hoops, guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Jill.
Bye bye.